4 weeks after a mysterious incurable virus spreads throughout the UK, a handful of survivors try to find sanctuary. Oh, hey Kiki. Have you been fed? Ow!
Reese? Reese? What are you doing? What? Reese?
Arena! An allergic reaction.
Arena, help us! Please!
Andrew, get it the EpiPen.
Thank you. Oh my gosh, get away from me!
Die!
Arena,
Die!
What are you doing with those scissors, Irina? Oh my gosh!
what are you doing to him?
Oh my
Oh.
god, you killed him! Wait, what's that in your face?
No. Get a ballpoint
wait.
pen and we perform a tracheostomy.
That'll save him.
You guys, I bludgeoned him with his Fast and the Furious collection. He would have wanted it that way.
That's the way he would have wanted
it that way. We clearly took a theater class to perform that little skit for y'all.
We all took different approaches.
It was worth it.
Welcome to Franchise Killer, a podcast where we pick movie franchises or wannabe franchises, review them film by film, and see where things went wrong. All right. And yeah, we were on brand there. Good job.
Had the same
Air
instinct
fist bump.
there.
And this guy to my right is
David.
I am Reese. You are.
Irina.
And you are.
Zombie number 7.
And way off in a distant
Oh,
land,
yeah.
we have.
AJ.
Cool.
Take you a while to get a ballpoint pen over here.
Yeah. He's still getting the EpiPen.
Yeah.
This week we are sort of topical with our franchise. Who knows? By the time this comes out, it could be a hellscape, or we could be through this whole coronavirus thing. But we are talking about 28 Days Later, the first of 2 films, and the jury is actually still out on a third, but it has been delayed and postponed so long that it's worth talking about here, and it's still a big question mark whether or not that's ever actually going to
So
happen.
what you're saying is it's a dormant franchise.
Yeah, so far I'm kind of saying it's a dormant franchise.
It's very
I
topical,
see.
though.
Yeah. The movie came out in 2002. It was directed by Danny Boyle, who also directed Trainspotting, Trainspotting 2, or T2 Trainspotting as it's called. Slumdog Millionaire, 127 Hours, Sunshine, Steve Jobs, and most recently the Beatles movie Yesterday, or the Beatles-inspired movie Yesterday. I don't know if any of y'all saw that.
I've never even heard of it.
David, you seem like the person who would see that movie.
Yeah,
It was
you're
like
the
comedic
you're the
version.
stereotype.
Yeah,
It was like
it's
kind
like
of
a
a comedy.
Yeah, it's a musical,
stuff.
romantic comedy.
No, I don't watch anything having to do with the Beatles.
Okay.
Romantic comedies,
like
though,
the Beatles?
musicals, though. It all fits together.
The film stars Killian or Cillian Murphy. I've heard both
Cillian?
It's
ways.
Killian. It's an Irish name.
Killian?
All right, Killian Murphy. Glad
Kill.
I got that out of the way before I said it for the whole episode, like I've done with other names in this podcast. Naomi Harris, Brendan Gleeson, Christopher Eccleston, and Megan Burns. It's written by Alex Garland, who is the writer behind Dread and the director of Ex Machina, Annihilation, and also the writer behind Sunshine, another Danny Boyle collaboration. Yeah, and this was actually based off his debut screenplay. Danny Boyle was really drawn to the screenplay for this movie, and yeah, started a fruitful collaboration between the two.
So there's got a lot of pretty good stuff out there then.
Yeah. So on this podcast, we talk about the movie, our impressions of it before going into this, whether we had seen it or not. And then we go into the story where we break it down portion by portion and then talk about some of the big moments throughout the plot. And in closing, we will give a brief review with score and then talk about the franchise as a whole. So yeah.
That's what we do.
Yeah, so David, had you seen this movie before?
I honestly don't know. I know, right?
So just like
Just like
King
the
Arthur.
last 3.
Well, it's weird though. These are big name movies, and
Just kidding.
I recognized scenes as I was watching it, and I was calling out certain things, and they happened after I said them, as
Or
if
maybe it's just predictable.
It might be. I thought about it, but some of them did ring a bell, but I can't remember watching it. So it might have been on the background somewhere. A Halloween Party, who knows?
I've found this is usually a case of watching part of a movie and just never finishing it. And that kind of correlates to like, I don't know if I saw a trailer or watched a portion of it, but I know I've seen parts of it.
Could
But
it perhaps been that you saw the second one? And
I don't think so because I remember specific scenes. And
okay.
I also do remember the poster for this, though. That was a very memorable poster.
it does have a memorable
Yeah.
poster.
So that's something that stood out to me.
Drenched in red with those
it's pretty good.
rage
Piercing
eyes.
Pretty
Yeah.
good poster.
With a symbol of bloodborne illness.
Yeah.
This is how you do a zombie movie, I'd say, in general, at least.
So, Arena.
For me, I actually watched this with my cousin. She was the person that introduced me to this film. And I remember going to her apartment because we had a plan to watch this movie together and I had never seen it. And I remember instantly being a little shocked because there's a full frontal nudity scene in the very beginning. So,
There's some danglage.
yeah, but after that, everything was, it was a fun experience.
Was this in between watching Howl's Moving Castle?
No, it was just a separate occasion.
This is funny.
Yeah.
Like, those are the two movies I've heard now that you've watched over a place.
Spirited Away and 28 Days Later.
So did it disturb you in more ways than one, I guess? Both the horror and the...
I was expecting...
The Dr. Manhattan.
yeah, the Dr. Manhattan
It
scene.
was basically that. I was expecting a different kind of zombie horror flick. And so I was sort of thrown off by the style of this one. And not in a bad way, though. I enjoyed it. So that was my experience.
Yeah. Noah.
I don't remember.
But before this, you're like, I don't like this movie. And you were
know
like,
it,
Reese,
I know
I
it.
trust me, I remember, I don't like this movie.
Okay, no.
He
Here's the thing.
remembers
Okay.
feelings. He doesn't remember
Okay,
specifics.
I didn't. I know that I watched it, and I misassociated this one with the second one.
28 weeks.
Okay.
28 weeks.
The one with Jeremy Renner?
Yeah, I guess. I don't really recall. It's been a long time since I saw that one, and I know I didn't like that one.
Okay. Well, I guess we'll see. We'll see what
For
happens.
certain.
So you had not seen this one as your...
No, I had. I
Okay.
had for sure seen it. I just didn't remember it.
Okay.
Yeah.
How about you, AJ?
So I had not seen this movie either. I had recognized the poster, or at least the box art for it. It's pretty iconic. I was kind of looking forward to seeing it because I did like Sunshine. I like Garland's work, Boyle and their collaboration too.
Yeah, I figured that'd kind of be down your alley, at least from a writing standpoint and directing, I
from
guess.
a writing standpoint. And then I don't see a whole lot of Killian Murphy stuff. Big thing is obviously Batman with him as Scarecrow.
Batman Begins in
And then-
Sunshine.
Peaky Blinders.
Yeah, he's in Sunshine as well. I think Garland and Boyle kind of pick on a lot of the same cast for a lot of their works.
Yeah.
And then what was the other? Peaky Blinders he's in. But yeah, other than that, I haven't really seen him. And then also Brendan Gleeson. I kind of
Mad Eye Moody.
Right.
Mad Eye
Yeah.
Moody himself.
And then I learned he's Donald Gleason's dad. I didn't know that before.
Yeah, it's crazy. Okay, so had not seen it. We got a good, even kind of people have seen
Yeah.
it. People don't know if they've seen it, and definitely
saw
seen
it, but don't remember.
So I think I saw this first with my uncle in theaters, actually, who started taking me to see horror movies at the ripe young age of 11 or 12. And 28 Days Later was one of the first R-rated movies I saw in theaters. And the first half or so of it was pretty traumatizing for me. And I, so much so that I kind of just blanked out the rest of it. So
Sounds like when I watched 12 Monkeys or 13 Monkeys, like when I was probably 5 years old by myself.
Oh my gosh, that does not sound
The original one, not the remake or whatever
That-
show they made. Yeah, that wasn't.
oh, not the the Brad Pitt movie.
Yeah, with what's his name?
Morgan Freeman and Brad Pitt, right? Or no, that's
No.
Seven. Sorry,
That's Seven,
Yeah.
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 that
12
the
Monkeys.
one
Was
with
that Bruce
the-
Willis? Man,
Yeah, the Bruce Willis. That's
yeah.
his-
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. I've seen half of that movie, and I saw it at a young age, and it was a little too weird for
Yeah,
me.
Yeah.
This was during that time where they had this tendency to make movies with numbers in the name, like in the
Yeah.
title.
They
like
still
to
do it.
know.
That's a common
Yeah, but
thing.
it's not.
I
not
honestly
as common
think it-
as it was for a while.
I think it's a
But-
conspiracy to get their movie to appear first in like the feed when you're like, just because
Yeah.
that comes before A.
Yeah, that's true.
if you're going alphabetical. Anyway,
That's what the Emoji Movie was going after. Must have been.
I hate the idea of that movie, and I will never watch it. I don't
need to
care.
die.
But yeah, my point was I sympathized with you there, being a little traumatized seeing this maybe, or at least I shared that experience with another movie.
I feel a little traumatized watching it now.
Oh, but I thought you were a big fan of horror movies, David.
I don't know if I'd classify this as a standard horror-esque movie.
Yeah, it's not
horror.
really quite horror. It's kind of a suspense.
Yeah, thriller-ish.
There are definitely some scenes in this that I would argue are horror.
They have horror elements for sure.
This one did kind of spark the re-emergence or reanimation, shall I say, of the zombie trend.
Yeah, Reed and I were talking about that earlier.
Yeah, definitely.
It did seem to do that. It was kind of ahead of the trend of all the ones that are like, oh, this did a good zombie movie, now we can do
Walking
it.
Dead.
You know?
You know what I just thought about? I didn't see anybody in this movie wash their hands.
That's
No,
true.
they
Come
didn't.
on, guys.
Could
Get with the
even
program.
wash their hands?
That
You gotta
explains
wash
it.
your hands within 10 to 20 seconds or you're done.
At least we know that Pepsi still makes it.
Oh, I was totally going to
was
point
just
that out.
thinking
That's
about
funny.
that, yeah.
All right, y'all want to get into the story?
Sure, let's do it.
All right. A highly contagious, rage-inducing virus is unleashed in Great Britain after a group of animal liberation activists attempt to free chimpanzees infected with the virus in Cambridge, spreading quickly among the populace and resulting in societal collapse. 28 days later, after the initial outbreak, bicycle courier Jim awakens from a coma in St. Thomas Hospital in London, where he discovers the city deserted. Wandering through London and finding signs of catastrophe, he is eventually attacked by humans infected by the virus, but rescued by survivors Selena and Mark. So, my first question is, how long has he been just sitting in a coma or lying in a coma?
28 days.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But like, can't that's not survivable unless he's just being the machines.
There could
He's
have
hooked
been
up
a
to
feeding
something.
tube
The
or
first thing
something.
about this movie is there's not a lot of technical science behind it that they really explain.
Yeah.
They didn't do like a lot of timeline for anything really, and that's
Well, I was like, does
was
he have
not
like a
a fan of
water
that.
IV hooked up to him or
Well,
something?
also we
or?
have to consider
It was.
when did these people leave exactly? They didn't leave the day of the start of this contagion or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So it could have been that someone was going back trying to take care of the sick or people in hospitals up to the point where they just couldn't anymore. So I don't know. It could have been a shorter amount of time than that.
Could have
Yeah,
been the
I
people in the
honestly
churches.
didn't think about that whenever they were first doing that because there's a
Yeah.
big glaring
There's-
penis in your face that
Maybe
distracts
that's
you
the
from the
point of
fact
making
that
him
there's
naked,
a
so
logical
you're not thinking about the specific
or a non-logical reason.
I don't know. It's usually the female, so it was kind of a
Yeah.
breath of fresh air.
I think one of the things about this movie
Breath
is
of
that
fresh
there's
Great.
Oh, God, Noah.
there's a lot that's left ambiguous about it. So you kind of are left trying to think, okay, how did this feasibly happen? What would have been the protocol? Why is he still alive? You know, you have to kind of come up with answers for yourself.
I personally
Yeah.
thought it meant that he had some sort of antidote or like he just was immune or something. But
I don't even know what was going on with the chimpanzee in the beginning, like the little intro cut. Like if
Yeah.
the Wikipedia didn't spell out that was, hey, that's PETA, like I didn't know who those people were trying to like.
I
Yeah,
wrote that as a
yeah.
note. I did
True.
not know who they were.
I
I
thought they were
just some random
activists.
soldiers. That
I
Yeah,
thought they
even
were
the
just
scientist was
activist
like,
types.
I know who you are and I know what you think you're doing. And I'm like, I don't. Can you like fill me in?
Can you
Like, who are these
explain?
people?
Although the
Explain
scientists
to
didn't
me
do a
what's
very
going
good job of explaining what was going on. Yeah.
Yeah, they just have rage, even though
I know. Okay.
apparently
yeah.
the writing was already
Let's-
existent, and then the chimp was watching that. It was almost like he was being brainwashed.
Yeah, let me say that first intro scene is hella cheesy. Like I
And it-
just it's so
It didn't tie in
so
with anything. It's
cheesy.
like, are these like PETA guys just coming in and letting monkeys go, and then I don't care if they're virus, let's let it go. And
Oh, no.
Yeah, that's what I was confused about because he's like, they have a virus, don't let them out, and they're like, I'm gonna do it
Yeah.
anyway.
I think it would have been more effective if they just didn't have that scene. You know, if we
Yeah,
just start
absolutely.
with Killian Murphy.
Same time, I was fond of where the virus came from, at least.
Yeah. I will say this is like the first movie where we have basically an instant spread of a virus, and instead of killing before they come back to life, they're just turned.
Yeah.
So what'd y'all think of this new kind of take on the zombie genre, I guess?
So
Just before that happens, I was going to say that they did talk about trying to refresh the zombie idea because they found a lot of concepts were tired out and just kind of old. So the idea that they search for brains is outdated, apparently, and
I was
so they
reading
didn't
that
want
too.
to do that. They also wanted to revive the fast zombies, like the quick running, which was already done in 1985 by that, what is it? The Return of the Living Dead? I think that was the first encounter with fast zombies.
Because the Night of the Living Dead was like
Yeah.
slow zombies.
Up until this one, they hadn't revisited that.
This might be an unpopular opinion, but I think slow zombies are scarier. I don't know why. Just the
Right, that is unpopular.
it makes them feel like we're in no rush to kill you. We'll get to you eventually. Like, we don't really need to speed up this process. We'll just you'll get tired. It's like a tortoise and the hare situation where
Well,
you'll take a rest and then we'll eat your brains.
but the thing that's interesting about their way of doing zombies here is that they're almost not zombies. They're almost just have a disease.
Yeah, and that's
Notice
actually
they're not even
that's-
eating the corpses. They're just attacking, biting, and then spreading it.
Yeah, and that's actually what drew Danny Boyle to this screenplay, or that Alex Garland wrote, was because it's a psychological disease versus something that kills and brings back.
That's
It's-
really interesting.
Zombie-like symptoms, but not actually being a zombie.
And you'll notice throughout the movie that they're generally kind of brainless, but at the same time they have this this weird
Lifelike.
form of sentience that's
Yeah.
Yeah,
a step above regular zombies, where
Yeah.
they're just complete instinct. You'll notice as they're whenever they chase after someone, when they realize they can't catch them, they immediately just stop and
Yeah.
they're like, okay.
I think the cool thing about horror films is it often does reflect the fears of society at that given point in time. And especially with the zombies, over time they've morphed into different elements of fear. And beforehand, it's kind of just they're seen as some body reanimating and wanting to eat human flesh. So it's more monster-like. But in this one, obviously they are monster-like, but it's a reflection of humans and their fear of disease and fast-acting spreadable disease.
And how
Yeah.
the non-infected respond to that. Just,
Right.
the fact that there's such a quick turnaround time. You have 20, 30 seconds to, make a split decision. Are they infected or not? Take the chance. And, is your family or friend infected? Are they going
Yeah.
to turn? Whereas the other, like, slow turning ones, like Walking Dead, you tie someone to a tree and you're like hemming and hawing. Do we cut them loose, free them, or...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's like, it cuts off that kind of emotional human part of yourself, even when you're not infected, because you're making instant decision to spare or, kill someone that might be a zombie in the next
That
30
happens
seconds.
a lot in this.
Yeah.
actually.
So one of my issues with the turning of the zombies, or to whatever that is that
zombies.
it seemed still way too quick.
it's very fast.
Based on how it was administered, at
Yeah.
least how they suddenly became like
Yeah,
you
physiologically
wouldn't,
it doesn't
your
make
mind,
sense.
your
Yeah.
body, it wouldn't make sense that way. The only way that they could do this, and it makes sense, is to have it be through some kind of psychedelic drug that
Yeah,
just
drug.
really affected you. But it was just through through blood or
Coughing in the face.
or being bit. And that was where it was a little iffy.
yeah. I don't know if any of you noticed, but did you notice how grainy the film quality was throughout this
Yeah,
movie?
it's the first film digitally recorded, right?
Yeah, to speak aesthetically for a moment, I actually learned that was an intentional choice after I
Yeah.
did the research. But God, I didn't think this movie looked all that great.
No, it didn't.
No,
Really
that's actually, kind of, I'll talk about personally in the end, is that was a intentional choice, like you said, to use consumer level digital cameras, not even professional cameras.
Yeah,
They
it's
use basically, anyone can go to Best Buy or wherever and buy this camera. And
I kind of
yeah, it was
I
it was
kinda
a
liked it.
Yeah,
honestly.
it's kind of a double-edged sword that I think
Yeah.
works more than it doesn't. To kind
I
of
think it probably would have worked if you're an audience in that time,
Yeah.
concurrently, and go to see
Yeah.
the theater and it's like, oh, artistically this neat, but it does not age well at all.
Especially now where I feel like this type of filming is associated with personal projects and
Right.
kind of school projects.
Yeah, and it's a
As
Searchlight.
opposed to-
It's a Fox Searchlight
yeah.
production, so it's an indie film, low budget, and even within the same movie, the very end where they're, on whatever, I won't spoil it, but that is actually filmed on 35 millimeter film, and you can tell a night and day difference.
Yeah, I might be one of the ones that is on the other side of things here. I actually like the choice to go with a kind of worse or lower quality footage because it gives you a sense of the times.
Yeah.
It puts you in a certain mood that, I don't know, it puts you more in it a little bit.
It's trying to be found footage without being found footage.
Right.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
Yeah, you took the words out of my mouth. It's like Blair Witch Project did that, Cloverfield, whatever, like after the fact disaster, someone filmed this while they're running.
Yeah.
Without the shaky cam, at least.
Yeah, but it's really hard to appreciate, like, we're about to go over Westminster Bridge, see Big Ben and Parliament and, all the London shots, and they're beautiful shots, and it's, like, ruined, in my opinion, because of how poor quality
the
the
aesthetic
is.
Yeah.
The interesting thing about that is I was reading an interview with the director, and he said he wanted to purposefully kind of strip London of its bustle and the way that everyone was familiar with it, and create a unique landscape where, like, he wanted London to be unfamiliar to the everyday eye because it's just so desolate. And I think this camera choice, I understand it. I think it dates it if you didn't watch it at the time or understand the purpose behind it. But he was trying to make it match the urban scenery, as well as it was just more effective because a lot of these busy areas are often like just covered with people. So they had to find a way to make a film in a short period of time and just set up it within minutes.
I think they filmed some shots within 45 minutes because they couldn't hold traffic on, like, Westminster Bridge, Piccadilly Square. Yeah, like, they're going to the parade grounds. There are no beef eaters in the shot. Like, it kind of sets that stark contrast. Like, this place is dead. Like, this should be bustling and all that stuff.
They accomplished what I Am Legend did with a much lower budget, and in my opinion, successfully. Yeah, because I Am Legend, there's an extensive budget towards making the streets of New York seem completely empty.
Oh gosh,
and even the highway, like M1 or whatever motorway that goes through all of England, it's like no cars at all, not a single other car until the blockades.
That makes sense. That I was bringing that up on, like, one of the few zombie movies where there are no cars abandoned. It's just an empty highway, which makes sense because they probably couldn't do it.
I'd always thought that was goofy whenever I saw all the zombie movies, because people
like
aren't just gonna suddenly, like, they're driving and then suddenly turn into a zombie while they're driving and think,
or
now I'm gonna stop, jump out of my car.
Or they're trying to escape and they run out of gas, or like there's a blockage of cars because someone hit somebody else.
I can see the gas.
I guess that's fair.
Yeah, I think it's more realistic to have abandoned cars than no cars at all.
All right, I guess the gas point makes sense, but
they're
always
just
just
stopping
like
traffic.
They're because of the panic and the traffic. But
I think they actually had. I think even Boyle's daughter and some, like, girls were the ones people asking to stop traffic so they wouldn't make people too mad.
Yeah.
We read that same IMDb page.
God.
Yeah.
Also, I did want to bring up the church scene. That's the scene where you first start realizing the reality he's facing. They also do that right before he gets there, I believe, where he sees the posters of kids and, like, families posting things on walls. And there's this really intense music playing where normally you'd think someone by themselves would be kind of calm. But it really puts you in the anxiety he's feeling of what's happening. And then he goes to a church because that is kind of the natural progression, especially if you are religious when you wake up. That'd be the place to go.
I do really like the John Hughes score, by the way, so I'm glad you called it out.
Very good.
Yeah, the theme is really good, and that's one of the better aspects of this too.
Yeah.
And then so he gets there, and you see in the big bold letters as he's walking, the end is extremely effing nigh, where you're like, oh man, this is getting real. And when he walks in and sees dead people strewn about the entire church, it's very real.
So the introduction of the zombies after 28 days have passed, there's that scene where in the church he comes across all the zombies. He makes a noise or he says hello or whatever it was. And there are two, like, kind of creepy moments. The first is the
Dead bodies?
Well, okay, other than the dead bodies, but some of the dead bodies just look up at him, and
Yeah.
and at first you're like, oh, that's normal people. Then you examine their faces for a moment. You're like,
For
oh,
me,
that's
for me,
normal people.
that is
Not
the
normal
scariest
people.
moment in the movie.
Yeah,
just the way
exactly.
how the camera pans from one to the other, how they're just like their eyes are
Exactly.
alerted to his presence.
gaping.
And,
Just
and
like,
you
yeah.
know that he doesn't understand, so you're like, oh no, he's not going to run away.
I thought that was actually scarier than
Oh,
the
yeah.
priest
Mm-hmm.
approaching him. To
Yeah.
me, just the zombies popping up like.
I hated
Yeah.
that he stayed for the priest.
Yeah.
Like, oh, Father, what's going on, Father?
also, side note, this is like just a funny little mistake I found. Like when he enters this church full of dead bodies, he doesn't like. It doesn't smell. Like he
Yeah.
doesn't put his
Yeah,
hand
yeah.
to his nose.
Oh,
But then he
yeah.
goes to the house of his parents later on, and it's instant. Like he
smell.
covers his
Continuity
nose.
issues.
Yeah,
So I was
yeah.
just like, okay, so the church full of 200 corpses smells
does
fine.
smell.
Place, it doesn't smell bad.
Well, he's also just standing in the middle of the street, like absolutely screaming, looking for people, and
I
Yeah.
know.
yeah.
I think, there are definitely a bunch of little plot holes or just holes in general in this
Well,
film.
apparently they don't.
mistakes.
The zombies don't really go out in the day.
No.
They do kind of establish that, but
Yeah.
it's still like kind of weird.
Going back to the church scene and all the bodies laid out inside the church, something Boyle did was he did a lot of research on global disasters. And so from very different parts of the world, he would see images from newspapers or these disasters, and he got a lot of influence for what he would set up a scene, and that was one of them. There was a picture of a church with just a bunch of bodies piled in it. I can't remember the
Yeah.
exact location, but this happens throughout the entire film. A lot of his scenes are made up of
yeah, I think it was like an
real
Iraqi
events.
chemical attack or something like
Yeah.
that.
That's
Yeah.
cool to see
But-
the inspiration.
Same thing with the bulletin board with all the notes for like missing people.
Yeah.
That was based on an actual like refugee crisis, and then this is actually being filmed before September 11th.
Yep.
And after September 11th, people actually did that in New York, looking for family members through that, and so they actually kind of caught a little criticism because it looked like he was copying that when it was actually filmed
Seemed
before that
insensitive.
happened.
Yeah.
So
Which I don't see why. Like, I don't see why that would be criticized because
think-
that's
Well,
just a
September
that's
11th just hit people so hard here that
Yeah.
it just like left people raw about
Any
everything.
reference
Yeah.
to it at
So
all was
this
yeah.
would having that portrayed in a film would feel like they were grabbing money based on people's emotions. So I could see getting upset over that. But
And before we close out this blurb, we meet Selena and Mark. They rescue Killian Murphy's character. What's his name? Joe. Yeah, Jim.
Jim.
Jim,
Basic
Joe,
Jim.
all the same.
So yeah, we automatically know pretty much from the start that Selena's she's gonna be the one that goes forward in this story, and not no name basically Mark, who we barely know.
I didn't know that.
Well, once you
I
saw
kind of
Selena, you thought, oh, a girl.
yeah.
She has to stick around.
I don't
Yeah,
know.
pretty
Mark
much.
also seemed to hold himself in a similar weight, and
He
I
did.
really liked his introduction
Yeah.
with the joke.
That
Right.
joke wasn't funny though.
It wasn't, but it showed
I wouldn't
the
have- I wouldn't have
actors
laughed
in
at that.
situation.
Well,
And
I'm not lying.
Maybe I expected him to maybe be knocked off, but maybe not as quickly as he was.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's pretty quick.
I think that was this is where the quickness of the virus comes into play and helps, kind of add to the dramatic or thematic tension
yeah.
where it's like, oh, this is just how the world is now. You got to kill quickly. And that was kind of, I think that jarring scene kind of
Yeah.
establishes.
Dude, her no reservations just hacking at him was
Yeah.
the I don't know. I think that's one of the things I will credit this film with is that there are so many other movies that they just take their time, they're crying, they're bawling.
She just looks him in the eyes and
Yeah.
she's like, "You're dead, man."
But I mean,
Yeah.
think about it from an audience perspective that hasn't seen it played out like that before, and just someone
Yeah.
suddenly brutally hacking
And-
a person that they seem to be really good friends with.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think any of the main characters who die are even bit by any of the quote unquote zombies. Like,
Yeah.
so he has a cut on his arm from his own machete, which had infected blood on it. And
Yeah.
later on, Brendan Gleeson is just like, he kills a bat or a bird or something.
it was a dead
No,
body.
there was a
he
that
body
kicks
hanging
the-
up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He
Oh,
kicks
and
the
And the
falls
thing
into his
fell
eye.
into
The
his
bird
eye.
and-
It was
yeah.
the dumbest thing ever. We'll talk about that later.
We'll talk
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
that.
But
David has some
when you
words.
think about it, things like that do happen. There are times where I'll be really annoyed at something and I'll like kick an inanimate object or whatever,
broken toe.
and then there's some weird repercussion somewhere.
All right,
But,
moving on.
No, those
Sorry.
zombies laser locked in. They're just running right through those windows. It almost looked like one. I was kind of confused by some of the shots they take on the cameras.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, one of
also
them
they
like
fell
air,
through a
erratic.
skylight.
yeah, one of them airdrops in like from somewhere.
Saw the
That's what I
light, and
thought
he was
too.
ready.
It was just like, how? Why? I don't know. And it's just like,
They
no
flung
one thought to
themselves.
tell him like, hey, be quiet and stuff. And he's just like watching this home video.
I
mean,
did bring
I
that
guess it
up.
would be traumatic that like, what would you rather like walk in and see your family turned, or would you rather see them just kind of gone or like committed suicide? That's kind of rough. And then you just kind of
Yeah.
like,
That
I didn't
was
really
rough.
get the full. Like I got it immediately, but that kind of just subsided quickly, and it almost seemed like he
Yeah,
didn't really
yeah.
take
Yeah.
time to properly deal
Mourn
with
them,
it
yeah.
emotionally.
All right, let's get to that part then. Selena and Mark inform Jim about the virus, which is believed to have spread worldwide. At Jim's request, the group travels to his parents' house in Deptford. I hope I said that right, guys. Deptford, where he learns they committed suicide. That night, Jim wanders around the house kitchen and lights up a candle, unwittingly attracting two infected neighbors who charge at Jim through the window. In the ensuing struggle, Mark accidentally slashes himself in the arm with the knife he used during the attack, and Selena kills him before he turns. So yeah, we just talked about that.
What a dummy.
Yeah.
But-
It's just weird that orange juice was definitely expired in the fridge. He just starts chugging, but at least they've got Pepsi.
Yeah.
Hey man,
A lot of
where you
Pepsi
can get
product
I
placement.
guess. But also the parent scene that happened
Yeah.
before that was pretty rough.
The letter too, I actually wrote it down. Their letter was
Yeah,
like
don't
pretty
wake up.
heartbreaking. It was
Yeah, I was like, oh,
yeah.
We're
Don't
gonna
wake
go.
up.
We're gonna also be with you.
like, to quote it exactly, it was Jim, with endless love, we left you sleeping. Now we're sleeping with you. Don't wake up. Which is like, that'd be a tough
would be
thing to read.
I know.
Yeah, it felt very real. And at first, I wrote down that I was kind of criticizing that he wasn't grieving properly. But then afterward, when he's reading the note, he starts to have a moment, and then they kind of show him later when he. I couldn't tell if he was watching home videos or if he was just
Oh,
standing
it's a
there.
He's,
memory.
he was
I thought
remembering.
It seemed like a weird mixture though, because he was interacting with the memory.
Yeah.
But I don't know. So that's what
well,
called
no,
on the
no,
zombies.
that was him in the memory. Like he was
So he's just
reacting
kinda-
that way, and then later it shows him like he was just thinking about.
Yeah, I don't know. Some of the shots they try to do are almost too artistic, and it's just like, what's
Yeah,
going on?
That's,
There are a couple of
that's,
those.
That's Danny Boyle. He's all about just really kind of experimenting.
taking risks.
He's all about kineticism and kind of just challenging the audience member in different ways.
Yeah.
But
I thought he was literally projecting a home video on the wall.
that's
I
that's
could
a
see
fair
why.
criticism.
I was unsure for a little while.
He did have that candle, and I remember looking at Noah and going, why does he have a candle? I feel like that'll attract zombies. I'm sure they would have warned him. They seem like very
like-
prepared people.
Sharks to a drop of blood. They just like come out of nowhere. Just oh, there's
Yep,
light.
there's
One of them
light,
dropped out of a
yeah.
helicopter.
At this point, he probably just didn't know.
Yeah.
I guess
It does seem strange, though.
he hadn't experienced any of it. He had just awakened.
Regardless of all that craziness, it was still a very emotional sort of intro.
Yeah. All right, so we already covered kind of the death of Mark and all of that.
Yeah, there's.
So
yeah.
we'll go ahead and move on here. After leaving the house, Jim and Selena encounter cab driver Frank and his daughter Hannah at Balfron Tower. Frank informs Jim and Selena of a military broadcast offering protection to survivors at a blockade in Manchester. With supplies dwindling and with them resorting to drinking water from the fish aquarium, Frank asks them to accompany him and Hannah to the blockade. The two accept and the group boards Frank's cab to Manchester, becoming close with each other during the trip. When they reach the blockade, however, they find it seemingly deserted, and Frank is infected when a drop of blood falls into his eye from a dead body. The soldiers arrive soon afterwards and kill Frank.
Wow, that covered a
happened there.
whole lot.
Yeah, a lot of
Because
ground.
the introduction of Frank and just their whole that kind of pause and staying with him at the in their apartment or whatever, finding the Christmas lights. I thought that take was kind of cool and just kind of meeting other survivors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really liked Brendan Gleeson in this.
Yeah, I
Literally
did too.
went over his intro and outro all in one paragraph.
Yeah,
I like how your first introduction to him is kind of faceless in this kind of SWAT
SWAT
suit.
uniform with the
Just
Yeah.
riot shield and everything, and he's
Yeah.
a Frosty the Snowman playing in the background, and just
Yeah, no,
a big fuzzy warm guy.
Then all of a sudden he turns into a character from the UK's The Office.
Yeah.
And they're all just
Also-
having an awkward moment in the zombie
tea.
apocalypse.
I also love how that first night where he's staying at their house or whatever,
Apartment.
what's his name? Jack Gleason, you said?
Brendan Gleeson.
Brendan Gleason, my apologies.
Just call him Mad Eye.
Frank.
Mad
Just
Eye.
Frank.
Yeah, there we go. Mad Eye. Frank. But anyways, he's like, oh, y'all sleeping in the same room? And he's like, no, I'll take another room. And then the next scene, he's like kind of shooting his shot with the girl.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's
And
like,
then
maybe-
she's
maybe
like,
I
haha,
should
yeah,
just,
walks away.
This actually was one of the better artistic shots or segments of the movie because, like the Christmas lights, it brings you into this, hey, this is kind of a taste of normal life almost. You have the fish in the fish tank with all the water depleted because that's what
yeah.
they've been
Good
drinking.
shot, actually.
They go to the
Yeah.
rooftop and there's a million buckets trying to collect rainwater. And they're all empty because he says it hasn't rained in 10 days, which is very rare for London. But if you notice in that shot with all the rain buckets on the roof, some of them are actually like laundry baskets with holes in
know.
them.
You were thinking the same
Stole
thing?
Because I think
Yeah.
Boyle ordered like 100 buckets for the shot, and they're like, oh, this doesn't look like nearly enough. So the cast and crew literally scrambled to grab whatever kind of container they
That's
did
cool.
to throw it out
I mean,
there.
I guess you could get a few droplets in a basket, but
You know, I just
not
think
really
immediately
ideal.
seeing
They were-
those, you're like, oh,
Yeah.
that's not going to collect much.
Maybe a little.
but
But they were turbo budgeting for that. For
yeah,
this whole movie.
speaking of the budget, though, on the as they're running up the stairwell here, there are definitely some audio issues, like just cutting out or way too loud, or just like, and also how is he shouting at the top of his lungs while sprinting upstairs? It's like, okay,
So the part that we all kind of laughed at
Oh,
was
yeah.
that this main character Jim being perfectly silent and just taking a little respite is sitting there, and then they hear the infected barging in and climbing over baskets, and she yells down the stairwell, "Quiet, that's the infected." And we just look at each other like,
Quiet down there.
She
Yeah.
yells it so loud.
Well, now they know where you are.
And what's funny is he's completely silent.
I know, it's like he said absolutely nothing.
He actually is the smart one, and he looks over the edge, not saying a word, as she shouts, "Quiet."
Well, and then she leaves him behind. She's like, "All right, I'm out of here, boy." He's like,
And
"Wait."
he's like, "Wait for
Anyway.
me."
So then we have the tunnel sequence, where I'm pretty sure you could not drive over that barricade of wreckage.
It's a little,
But
little dumb.
It was
okay,
fun.
but let's go
fun.
with it.
Yeah,
Very,
I don't
very
know.
much,
It fit the
I mean,
moment,
so
the mood.
I do enjoy a tunnel scene. There's just this dread approaching a tunnel, and you're thinking,
Yeah.
why do we have to go through the tunnel? But so I think it's a very, I don't know, it's a interesting little obstacle to incorporate in any kind of zombie apocalypse.
It's
or
so
whatever.
close to being one of those cliche tropes in
Yeah,
horror movies, though, where it's like,
definitely.
let's split up and cover more
Well,
ground.
it-
It's like,
Yeah.
let's
Yeah.
go
The
through the
second movie did
tunnels.
the
Go
same
through the
thing.
tunnel.
Well, it's like
Yeah.
if anyone has read The Stand, I mean that's right out of The Stand in the intro,
yeah.
and it's also kind of like this infected sort of movement movie.
Oh yeah.
I would love a new take on The Stand.
Yeah.
I want a movie of that. Please make
be
it
a
happen,
pretty
or a
good
TV show. Do it. I know they're trying to work on it. But...
Moon. That spells sequel.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Okay.
You didn't read the book, so you don't get it.
I've seen the miniseries though.
In other thoughts, the whole middle portion kind of reminds me of Zombieland I know Zombieland came out much later.
The grocery store
but
portion.
yeah, they have that
Yeah.
grocery store scene, and
Yeah.
This came out.
they're all
Yeah.
kind of happy, and
No, the whole scene where it's like, oh yeah, get my daughter Valium. That's a good idea. They're just like trying to
hey.
camp out. I can't sleep. Here, just take half of Valium.
Yeah, half
I
a
think it's
capsule,
like,
man.
Well,
no problem.
he
Yeah, it's a
also
joke
seemed hesitant about it. It's just that the other lady's
Yeah.
like, "I'm a chemist. I know."
It's
yeah,
fine.
it's fine.
It's the
Well,
end of the
chemist,
world
chemist in
anyway.
England being pharmacist, but
Yeah.
Throughout this
and
whole
then
movie,
their
she's
like
still
campfire
pushing.
is straight up. I'm pretty sure a gas fire, not a wood fire. So that was kind of out of place.
I will say, I thought this movie benefited from having this moment of levity. I guess
Humanity,
where
and normalcy and stuff, and just kind of we can kind of learn about each other instead of everyone's on edge and don't
Yeah.
learn names, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
Yeah, it was
gives
a nice
some good
little-
character development when they're happy. It makes you think, oh yeah, these
Yeah.
guys like each other. They're good people. You know,
I
it's
think
not
it's
it was a
all bad.
departure from the cruel world that we've been introduced to throughout the entire
Well,
first
also-
act of the movie.
There's something kind of symbolically interesting about leaving the city and heading into what's more of a rural landscape, kind of like it. We usually, to get away from our everyday lives, kind of leave to more isolated locations like going camping. So in a way, it sort of feels like normalcy, just leaving the city and going out to a place that's already kind of desolate to begin with. You can sort of ignore the fact that you're alone by pretending that
and they're
just
supposedly,
leaving.
in their mind, they're going to someone who has found a cure or some kind of thing that was broadcasted over radio.
Yeah.
So
They have that guiding light.
So do y'all think Jim, right?
Yeah.
Do you think Jim and Selena have a decent chemistry? Yeah.
Oh, I think they.
No?
I think they do.
Disagreement. I thought they
think
were
do.
fine. Yeah.
Yeah, I think at first you don't really expect it, but then as it goes forward, it starts to work.
Yeah.
For me, I believe more of a kind of a bonding rather than a we're
Romantic, sort of.
romantically interested.
Oh, yeah.
I think
yeah, I'd
that's-
say like kind
yeah.
of animalistic urges versus
Yeah.
because of their always running on adrenaline
Yeah.
versus
Yeah.
emotional connection.
And-
there's
And that's
there's
exactly what I was thinking too.
some scenes where they're just like, oh, this just happened, and then let's just like start making out randomly.
Yeah,
Right,
it's the whole
It was
like
just-
kind of it's
That
the
was
shared
fast.
it's the shared trauma
Yeah.
thing
but
where it's
Well,
but
also
like,
just
that
that
is a sort
heightened-
of chemistry though.
There's that heightened awareness of, oh, we're the only two within our age range, of opposing sexes. It's you can't not think about that.
Yeah.
I just felt like, as far as character goes, they don't really highlight any kind of really depth of growth from
Right.
Jim, or like Selena's almost like bipolar in the sense that, like, just sorry for using that word, but like she kind of goes from bristly exterior, rough exterior to, she's like randomly vulnerable and happy go lucky.
Yeah,
Right.
I was.
Right.
Yeah,
I was
that's
gonna
what
with no
bring
in
that up.
between at all.
I
And it
honestly
just-
think that she started off that rough and gruff style because that's what you had to be in the beginning to stay alive, and that's what she kind of adopted. I don't think she's naturally that kind of person, but then I kind of like the family scene where they're all kind of hanging out in that scene because it sort of makes her come to terms like, oh yeah, this is what I left behind.
Yeah.
And it kind of brought her back to reality. So in a sense, I know that it was
not
a
reality,
little,
but how reality
Yeah,
used
yeah.
to
It's
be.
just,
Yeah.
there's no in between. It's just like swing to one end
Yeah.
of the spectrum to the
and
other.
she's like, all right, let's kiss. I'm like, wait, what?
And then, through the whole movie, Jim just kind of seems like he's like wide-eyed the whole time,
He's
not
just
really
in a daze
learning.
the whole movie.
Yeah.
And
I don't
then
know.
all of a sudden he's a badass. But
So I actually somewhat disagree with that. He did come out towards the end a little more than he had before, but watching the movie at first he's making a dumb decision here. This is an emotionally based decision at the beginning, but you'll notice going through the film, he makes a mistake, he does not make it again.
Yeah.
He makes a
Yeah.
mistake, he does not make
He's
that
a
one
savage.
again.
So I
And-
agree with you. There's
Yeah.
one scene in particular where he goes in to get hamburgers.
Burgers, yes.
Yes.
And he takes out that zombie that kind of almost gets the jump on him.
Oh yeah.
And he learns from that situation.
well,
He
I actually disagree.
Noah and I, wait. Let's. We were watching this, and Noah and I actually had a little bit of a conversation about this,
Yeah.
a little bit of a disagreement, and we kind of wanted to bring it up to see how
Okay.
you guys perceive this scene. I thought that he went in there for food or whatever, and he just, even though he's observant, he obviously was a little careless the way he was going about it, and then that kid came upon him and he killed it, and then afterward he kind of seems weird when they question him about it and he doesn't say anything, and I thought he was a little ashamed that he killed a kid. That's the way I perceived it.
All right. Now, from my perspective, he went in there to kill something. I think he went in there. He was not looking for burgers. He knew what he was going in there for.
Oh, he was looking for some meat, all right.
He saw all the dead bodies around. He purposefully said hello really loud so that he would be heard in there. And
think
he
he
was
went,
trying-
he went he went all the way inside. Well, whether it's stupid or not, it's kind of like I think he calculatedly knew something was going to come after him and he was going to kill it.
I think he was curious to see what this place had, what was in there. I don't think he was going in to get burgers.
He
but I
wasn't
think
going to get burgers.
But I think it's just
get some burgers, guys.
I think he's starting to feel more comfortable in this post-apocalyptic world, and he's just going to see what's in there. And I don't think he was going in there with the intention necessarily of killing something, but I do think there was like this, he's becoming more kind of fearless of what he could encounter, maybe.
Right.
I don't know.
But when you bring it up later, when he's talking to the dude, the guy asks him, "Did you kill somebody?" And he's looking to the side, like.
Yeah.
He's like, I killed a kid. It seemed like he was ashamed. Like he was
Yeah,
kind of
and
sad
I'm sure
about
he
it.
was ashamed.
Maybe
on some
maybe
level,
a better
but-
way to say what I'm trying to say is he almost feels he's definitely a follower versus a leader, and he almost seems passive. If he wasn't in a group, he wouldn't really make it.
Yeah.
Oh,
I could
yeah.
see that.
Do you
I don't think he
that
ever gets to
went
the
in there?
point where he would be kind of okay roughing it on his own a little bit or making the shots.
That's definitely
Which is why
the
kind of his
case,
turn
yeah.
at the end was just kind of out of place for me. But
He turned into Rambo. We get it.
Okay. Yeah, it's interesting that you have this perspective because I read it in differently. We'll get to that, I guess.
I
but,
could see both of y'all's interpretations. though.
exactly.
That's
And
interesting.
I think neither one of us disagreed with the other person's. It was more like, I didn't think about it that way.
Yeah,
They didn't
exactly.
explain it very well.
And even AJ's, I could see him just being an idiot. Like I could honestly see all of them. Like,
Well, let's. Why don't we go to
So,
the next portion?
Let's talk about Frank's death. I want to touch
Yeah,
on
we
it.
gotta
We'll
talk about
talk
that.
about it a little
Right,
bit.
yeah.
It was just like, what are the odds? Let's stand right underneath this thing and look straight up at it, and then one tiny drop of blood lands right in my eyeball.
I think they're just trying to show that
Yeah.
anything can happen,
And then
that just,
right after that, that's when the soldiers show up. Not
that
before.
pissed me off.
Well,
And then he gets, like 50 rounds shot into his torso, and then his daughter's like, "Dad, are you okay?"
Oh, I wrote
Oh
that
my
down.
God.
Guys, look at my computer. I'm like, I have it. I wrote
had
it
it on my
down.
notes too,
I was
actually.
like, Dad?
I gotta get to that because that part actually made me laugh.
Yeah.
Stay away from him, Dad. Lol.
but what was funny about that is that they unload like all like the whole army's like shooting at his body for like 30 seconds.
okay, so-
and then they're like, "Stay away!" After that, like, my bad. I planned on coming towards the barrage of bullets.
So what's funny is AJ,
Although with
David,
that girl,
and
I guess.
AJ, David, and I all watched this separately, and we had this pretty much the same note
The
on that
exact
exact.
same.
Oh yeah.
Dad?
See, I just-
question mark.
Dad,
mine-
Dad, lol.
My notes for that point was this girl, man. Wow.
She dumb.
He was
Just
dumb.
kidding.
And actually,
She's like the kid in Spider's Web where he accepts the call from his dead dad like 2 years later.
Hello?
And
Oh my gosh.
I have to say that her acting throughout the film, it leaves something to be desired as
So,
well.
like
But-
in the very beginning when I first see her, she's a little, disgruntled, not really talking, and that made sense. But then from then on, she just her acting kind of just falters, and the writing is not great. Her delivery of her lines is very wooden, and I just don't care about her.
I want to say in real life she's more of a singer now than an actress. Don't quote me on that, but I think that's how it is.
Yeah.
Don't cast singers.
Yeah,
as-
I
you're not one,
still
you're
I
the
still
other.
liked the death scene though, because I thought it was abrupt, just like how if we were living in a world where this virus existed, like, oh wow, that just it would happen so inconsequentially.
Yeah.
like
And
that.
it's like
Yeah.
Ned Stark dying. He's like the one that everyone like goes to like be kind of the father figure and kind of keep everything together. And it's like, oh, now he's gone great.
now he's gone.
Yeah.
and we
Also,
have chaos
really-
again.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, I
Go
didn't
ahead.
mean to interrupt. But when he is infected and his daughter's coming by, he's like, "Hey, I love you," and she's like, "Oh, whatever, Dad." And then she starts going, and he's like, "Get away from me!" And then she's like, "What's going on, Dad?" I'm like, "What the heck do you think is happening?"
He's like having a
shaking and,
like a
and then he like throws her
spasm.
across the hall.
Dude,
I mean, she
dumb.
is like 10 years old, but still.
She's 16.
She's 16?
Yes,
What? Where'd you get that information?
I looked it up.
His transition actually took a little bit longer, so it's almost like he fought it off, and there was almost a little bit of tension where it's like, is he gonna run away and sacrifice himself, or is he gonna just like let it
Yeah,
happen?
no, he's not really gonna do much by just standing
Oh,
there
yeah.
and telling people to get away.
Yeah, I
It
guess
looked
that
like he was gonna keep it a secret. Then I actually admired him for this.
I did too.
He at first was like, "Get away from me." He tried to do it nice but stern.
Well,
and then
also-
she was being stupid.
Well, he also
so he
wanted his
literally
last
shoved
words-
her really hard
He
to
did.
get that.
His
to
last
not
words to
happen.
her, he wanted to be "I love you," and then run away. And then
But
she's
then
like,
she had to be stupid.
She had to be stupid.
Stupid girl.
Yeah.
I mean, it's her dad, and it's the only person she knows.
But also, how stupid was it that they've been wandering around this area forever looking for the military, and they're like, "Oh, no one's here. This sucks." And then, like, right when he turns, they're like, "Hey, here we are."
See, I've always thought
Anyway.
that
Yeah.
the way of going into a new place where there could be zombies is dumb. What they should do is they should go into that place, give like a little a noise, like make a noise so that they'll all be drawn out, and once they see the horde of zombies, maybe we shouldn't go there. Maybe that's not the idea. Maybe
Yeah,
there
and I feel
are
like Selena's
people.
too dismissive of, oh, hey, let's get out of here, where this is like, hey, this is our our endpoint up till now is like, supposedly they have a cure here. We know that people have been involved here that are survivors. Like, maybe be cautious about it, but yeah, explore, kind of go from here instead of, oh, there's nothing here, let's like leave. And like, okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I guess we can move on now. We talked about Frank's death.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Bye, Frank.
The remaining survivors are taken to a fortified mansion under the command of Major Henry West. However, the safety promised by the soldiers turns out to be false when West reveals to Jim that the broadcast was intended to lure female survivors into sexual slavery. Jim refuses to be complicit with the soldiers' plan and attempts to escape with Selena and Hannah, but they're stopped by West's men. One of the soldiers, Sergeant Farrell, dissents and tries to help the trio, but both he and Jim are locked up and are to be executed the next morning. Farrell explains to Jim his theory that Britain has been quarantined and the rest of the world remains uninfected.
So this is where the movie got really interesting for me.
This is
For me,
where
it's where it derailed, and I was like, what? Well,
yeah,
okay, so
it derailed for me as well. Wow.
when Eccleston showed up, I like Eccleston a lot. Like, you know,
He was
I liked
good.
him in Doctor Who. Like, I like him as an actor.
His best role was Malekith in Thor: The Dark World.
Yeah, he was good in Dumbo too. But no.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was excited for him to show up, and he plays a straight good guy, and you're kind of on his side. He's like, okay, finally they catch a break, that kind of thing. He levels with Jim. It seems like he's honest, and he's like, hey, yeah, there's a cure. It might not be what you expect, but blah, blah, blah. And there's no, like, really, in my opinion, I didn't get any sense of foreboding, tension, or like, don't trust this guy kind of thing. It's like, okay, finally catching a break here, maybe. And then all of a sudden, he's just like, oh, yeah, you can't leave because I promised the guys that they can have women.
So,
and I was like, what? That's the twist of this movie?
Well,
These guys suck because they want to screw women? Like, what?
I mean, I honestly did not get a good vibe from them in the beginning. One of my notes was, not sure I'm feeling good about these army people. And that was right off the bat. Like, right after that sort of, what's for dinner, sir? Surprise, sir.
Yeah, maybe the rank and file guys, like, they're kind of disjointed. They're like making do with what shambles they've got. They're cooking. They've got rotten eggs and stuff. But like, as far as Henry West goes, like, he seems like he's holding them together because he's just kind of, that's what he's given. And he seems kind of like a straight shooter to me. I don't know.
Yeah. So the thing about that is that, from my perspective, he was supposed to look like, oh yeah, he's this good guy, but he's actually like this charismatic villain that is very self-righteous, and he thinks what he's doing is the right thing.
Yeah.
So
Motivated.
even he thinks he's a good guy.
So almost to a fault where they're still going by dress decorum, and you know, everyone's wearing full uniform. They're doing, you know, full ceremony, all that stuff. Even though then, you know, it's the end of the world kind of thing. Like, why bother with that? Well, it's like, well, that keeps order and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So,
I guess the kind of red flag that I missed maybe was, you know, private mailers chained up over there. That's kind of a big red flag that I probably
that's
Yeah.
what I was thinking too.
So the big tell for me was actually just him snapping at the cook for the eggs not being good.
Yeah,
So
Like, for me, I was like, okay, there's
Something.
an
going on.
underlying kind of dynamic
And then
here.
turning to the girl saying like, are you a good cook? I hope you are, because
That was
we really
weird.
need one. And
Yeah.
so the thing I liked about this segment was that they kind of changed the narrative, because up to this point you're kind of thinking, oh yeah, a new zombie movie. It's a little different because the zombies are kind of different. But this is where it takes a turn the way The Walking Dead did.
Yeah, and I actually have that
Yeah.
exactly in my
Right.
notes. I was like, The Walking Dead stole this from 28 Days Later,
Well,
where not the
even-
only danger is
especially
the zombies.
Even the intro scene where he wakes up amidst just this desolation.
Yeah, that's taken too.
That's in
Oh,
I
yeah.
actually had
Dead
that
as
in my
well.
notes as well.
Yeah.
So this is why I liked this portion, because I felt up to that point, I kind of just didn't really care about the characters as much. I don't think they were developed enough.
Yeah.
Their
Yeah.
dialogue was a little dry. It's kind of like they're trying to create this fantasy where they all really, really like each other, but you don't feel like you've seen enough of their bonding to really believe it.
I wasn't feeling it.
But and then you get to this point where you are introduced to a new kind of threat where it's like you want to like this guy, you want to like
And I
this
think-
leader, but
Yeah.
he's turning on you.
One of these pivotal scenes, how it was written in the script, they completely scrapped it. And Garland, Killian, and Naomi, they sat down the night before they shot it and kind of rewrote it. So I kind of feel like maybe some of this wasn't set in stone,
Right.
really how they wanted it to be, or that twist maybe wasn't really a fully developed
Right.
idea. So I kind of get that feeling from it. I don't know, that's just me. But I do like artistically what they did in this mansion, where a lot of these shots have that marble statue in the
Laocoon?
background.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
Laocoon.
yeah.
So that I looked into him a lot, and it's kind of a cool parallel to, and it just kind of to Garland's credit and Boyle's credit, just having that prominent in the shot where, and that statue alone in his history is kind of a not set in stone either, where people believe different things about it. But
Right.
the original interpretation of that statue, Laocoon and his sons, is a warning against the fall of civilization, Troy.
Wow, y'all went deeper
originally.
than I did.
But
Well, so
the Romans
yeah.
actually kind of co-opted that and flipped it, where they believed it was a depiction of a necessary sacrifice to rebuild a new society out of their own arrogance and self-appreciation kind of thing for their great society, which kind of mimics Henry here, the major, and we're
Yeah.
rebuilding society with the women. So I kind of thought that was cool. I really appreciated that.
The
but-
cool thing about that image is that you obviously know that there is some purpose to it, because it's almost in every single shot that you see within this mansion.
Yeah.
And it can't be in every single room. But
Right.
the other interpretation you can take from it too is that he was a Trojan priest. And like you said, like they're all different interpretations of his story or his tragedy, but he was essentially the one trying to warn the Trojans that don't receive gifts from the Greeks, because, that's
It's
trouble.
a trick.
Yeah.
But nobody believed him, and they went with it anyway.
Interesting.
And he
Yeah.
ended up dying, or his sons ended up dying.
And if I didn't know Boyle and if I didn't know Garland, I wouldn't have looked for that intentionally. So that's me giving them the benefit of the doubt, where some of this other, because of the low budgetness of this movie, like that probably would have gone by the wayside. So
Yeah, they did their
That's-
homework.
right.
it's that kind of thing that I really appreciate, the work they put into this kind of stuff, even though maybe the final product doesn't really
Right.
deliver.
To relate to that, how they have all this kind of symbology going on. If you go back to Frank's death, they have that crow or raven,
Yeah.
whatever it was, and that's something that always alludes to
Foreboding.
some omen of some sort. That
Yeah. Omen of
Death
death,
is coming.
omen of
Yeah.
They had a lot
some
more symbolism in
terrible
this
stuff.
than I was expecting.
Now, they had the
Yep.
chained up guy in the cell. I forget
Yeah.
his rank and his name, but he tried to help him out, so they throw him and lock him up. And he's like, yeah, the commander's crazy, and, we're all of England is just quarantined and the rest of the world is fine.
Yeah.
And he's got that kind of theory, but that kind of contradicts what Selena said early in the movie. He's like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
Paris had an outbreak, New York had an outbreak.
Yep.
You bring that up, and that created a question in my mind when I was watching it that I didn't bring up to the rest of the guys.
Did we
but
not talk about it?
Oh, did we?
Well, all I know is that I took a note when they brought up earlier when she said it went to New York and everywhere. Well, I in my notes I was like, how did it make it overseas? Because it's so fast acting.
Then we were talking about
I think
that
we did.
because we were saying, like, how does it work? How does it get on a plane then, and how do they make that plane flight all the way over?
Yeah, this is also when they
without
realized
it
that
crashing.
this is also when they realized that it, or at least the guy who's in chains does. I know you just said it.
Yeah.
Was it Farrell? Like I think that was his name.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you posited that it was just in the UK.
Well, it could be that, like, we can also argue that similar to what's going on now with the coronavirus, a lot of rumors spread. So maybe like that was a rumor that it spread to New York and Paris,
Yeah.
and she just
Although,
happened to
unlike-
pick that up.
Yeah, unlike reality here, though, it's like the coronavirus here is such a long dormancy that it spreads without people being symptomatic.
Right.
Whereas this is completely the opposite. They turn
Oh,
in
yeah.
30 seconds. and-
Immediately.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it doesn't seem plausible
So
for
that's
it to extend
that's
overseas.
one of the problems I have with this is trying to inject kind of pragmatism and realism. Is this like you really have to suspend your disbelief
Right.
and say this doesn't make sense. Whatever it is, what it is.
Yeah.
I will. I'll give them some credit though. They do. I don't think any other zombie movie does this, but this one has them actually the zombies starving to death.
Yeah.
kind of in the
Right.
end, and I appreciated that. Like, yeah, they got to feed. You know,
Yeah.
they're not
Right.
dead. They need to eat something.
Right.
Although it kind of conflicts with how you're talking about this zombie condition is more of a psychological thing than a physical thing in this rendition.
Right.
Yet, they're like trachs are getting ripped out and throats are getting ripped out and all this
Yeah.
blood, eyes gored out. It's like that would definitely kill somebody.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of inconsistencies from like practical, realistic
Yeah.
kind of things that I don't know. That's just me kind of, and
Yeah.
I would like to see a zombie movie say, this is the timeline for incubation. This is, how long they last. This is how long they turn. This is the
Right.
timeline for things. Whereas this really doesn't establish timelines.
Well, maybe we can talk about
think-
World War Z, because I think that kind of does
Wait.
that.
Irene,
Yeah.
you're gonna say something?
Yeah.
I think Noah, I was rewatching it with Noah, and he made an interesting point about the, what was his name? Mailer, the zombie guy that was chained up.
How he's like a slave?
Yeah,
That
basically. Well,
Yeah.
you were making a bunch of comments on that guy, and I hadn't really thought about it that way, but once I did, it made a whole lot of sense.
All I thought of when I saw him was Shaun of the Dead, how at the end they just have those
Yeah,
zombies
on
on, or Land of the Dead as well.
Well, yeah, they have they're both trying to make the women slaves, and the one person that they happen to have chained up is this black guy that
It did.
well,
I mean,
he's
that
a
was
zombie.
something where it's
And-
like you see it and
Exactly.
it hits immediately.
And then you also have to
Yeah.
wonder, though, like, is that because we are Americans and that's such a huge
Well-
thing in our past?
if you're
Yeah,
talking
maybe.
about race and that kind of
Yeah.
like being this kind of an allegory for like, oh, mankind is already sick because of that kind of thing.
Right.
I mean, that's a good point. I didn't immediately jump to that. I just knew that he was a private, so he's bottom
Yeah,
of the
yeah,
rung.
yeah.
And everyone else is a ranking officer to some extent, except for like
Yeah.
the guy that's a cook and all that. He's kind of an idiot.
Oh, yeah.
But
Yeah.
I just figured it was kind of a hierarchy thing
Well, this is
because of rank.
It was also the first encounter with one of these zombies where you felt a little more sympathetic towards their plight.
Right.
Because at the end, he's kind of reaching out to Jim.
That was the most life you've
almost
seen.
imploringly.
And Jim actually like basically pushes Henry like in front of him, and it's like, oh well, he just showed us his own colors there, like
yeah, just
hiding
get the guy
behind
out
him.
of his way.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, actually, what was interesting about that you said with the imploring nature of the zombie is that was actually, you could tell that was intentional there, because Jim is like, oh, I'm gonna go help this guy for a moment, and
Or at
then
least the
it
sympathy
starts
was
to
there.
attack him again,
Also,
and then he jumps back again.
This is
and
made even
walks back
this
in.
is made even more disturbing when you realize how mysterious the psychological effect this disease or virus has on people, because they are not dead and reborn.
Right.
They are psychologically affected.
Right.
I'm
Oh,
wondering
yeah.
like what they are actually perceiving in their minds
Right.
when they're
Rage,
know.
Reese,
You know?
oh
rage.
yeah, it's rage.
I know it's rage, but I feel
They're
like
mad
they're
at everybody.
I'm wondering if they are, since they never died, if they are still themselves and they are just possessed by this
Right.
emotion, I guess.
Seems
I don't
to
know.
break down that sort of intelligence in your brain. You become animalistic in a way where it's like you only think or feel.
Yeah.
You don't actually have any real empathy or understanding. It's just nothing
Instinct.
but pure instinct. Yeah.
There's so much allegory and symbolism that they kind of put into this last little segment here
Yeah.
that it's really hard to I feel like we keep jumping
Yeah.
around to little poignant scenes, but
Yeah,
it's
all
really
that
hard to
It
keep-
feels
went right
ham-fisted.
over my head.
yeah, it does.
I like that we're talking
Yeah.
a lot about the virus right now, but we really haven't touched on the actual scenes happening, which, in this case is a lot.
Let's push on with the story.
Yeah.
Last big blurb here, and then we got one more little one after this.
Okay.
So
the last blurb and then another one.
no, a smaller one. This one's the last big chunk, and
Oh.
then we will close it out. The next morning, Jim and Farrell are marched out to an infected mass grave. Jim hides and escapes after Farrell distracts their executioners. While fleeing, Jim notices a plane streaming overhead and realizes Farrell's theory is correct. Meanwhile, Selena and Hannah are forcibly stripped and abused by West's men. Jim returns to the blockade and sounds the air raid siren. After tricking West into leaving the mansion, Jim sneaks around and stealthily kills one of West's men. West attempts to flee, but finds his Land Rover to be sabotaged by Jim, just as the infected begin to arrive at the blockade. Knowing more infected will come, West runs back to the mansion. Jim returns to the mansion in time to release Private Mailer, an infected soldier kept chained for observation, resulting in the infection and mutilation of half of West's men. Jim, Selena, and Hannah attempt to leave in Frank's cab, but find West in the back seat. West shoots Jim. Hannah retaliates by putting the cab in reverse, allowing Mailer to grab West through the rear window and kill him, and the 3 survivors escape from the mansion. All right.
Whole lot of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it was a lot, but also
Yeah.
not a lot. It's just a lot of words to describe something.
This scene
Not
has
as
a
big.
lot of cool moments that I really enjoy. I always love the main character finally, out rusing the bad guy.
Yeah,
you know?
this was Killian Murphy's hero turn that they've been, as some of y'all think, is unsuccessfully pulled off. For me, I felt something. I thought his appearance was justified, and I thought he earned his
Yeah.
place as kind of like this.
I would have liked more of a build-up, like AJ said,
Yeah.
for, kind of understanding that he is learning from his surroundings a little more.
I think that's
just
yeah.
it was so abrupt that it was like supposed to be he's mimicking an infected where something switches in him
Yeah.
and he's just demented.
Yeah, well, I think it was assisted by his bond that he had begun to form with Selena. I think
Right.
it's him, coming into his own and also being like, I think I like this woman, and what else have I got to lose?
Well,
I'm
then
gonna do
also
this.
when he sees them being abused and them talking about raping them and everything, I feel
yeah.
like it probably hit something deep inside of him where he's like, all right, this is real.
Yeah.
I need to actually step
that
up.
one, and also the added effect of seeing the airplane and knowing there's something more beyond this. So now I really need to get them out of there.
He went full on Rambo
Yeah.
mode, by the way.
yeah, he
But
really did.
actually, so here's the thing. He didn't do it quite like Rambo. Rambo is just like, all right, guns blazing, kind of.
What? No, he was
like,
tactical.
Actually,
Okay, he was
hiding in the
tactical.
No,
woods.
because
like-
if you release Mailer, what's the guarantee that Mailer's not going to kill the women too?
I know that's the one I thought about, but
I mean,
Like you can't aim like a cannon like that. It's
Hey, they aimed the Hulk, man. Come on.
Oh yeah.
yeah. So,
But regardless, I think he knew that they were probably entrapped somewhere, and this was gonna wreak havoc in the base, so that he could take care of everything else.
He's not
But-
taking a very calculated risk, but I think the risk here would be that they are the only women that these men have seen for a while, so maybe they are protective enough to not throw them into the zombies line of
I don't know. I don't trust Rapey McRapeface for one second.
no,
I thought he would do anything to get away.
yeah.
Oh,
He's like the main villain in my eyes.
what was his name again?
I decided earlier. His name now is Rapey McRapeface. I don't remember what his character
Everyone
name
knows
is.
who that is.
He's
Doctor Who.
No, not him. The other guy who is belligerent the whole time and
about-
he's just like, I am
oh,
ready
the guy
to
with the
take
weird
advantage.
shaved patches in his head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, not that one.
no?
The one that's
all
going
rapey
to
McRape
execute
face.
them, and he's gonna
Well,
stab the
yeah,
guy.
Yeah, the guy who's going to stab him, the one who immediately was like grabbing the girls before they let them in on the plan.
Yeah, was he the one that was like, yeah, I'm gonna I got some zombie guts on me, cool?
Yes,
When they're
that's
like
him.
defending the house.
Yeah, that's him.
Which, by the way, these guys really waste a lot of ammunition for
Oh,
a
yeah.
post-apocalyptic scenario.
they're
Just
dumb.
saying.
But not only that, they should have an aversion to zombie guts, because you get that in your eyes. And
Yeah.
I do
whatever,
like-
you're
I
apparently
do
in
like-
this
done.
situation, you only have to get it in your eye or mouth, and
Mm-hmm.
not any other kind of form of transmission like mucous membranes to worry about. But
Yeah, don't worry about
Yeah.
it.
I do like that scene where the zombie hits a landmine and then falls into another landmine.
Oh, yeah,
Effective.
But
Waste of landmines, but cool.
That zombie's dead.
So regarding the whole scene where he goes somewhat Rambo, I do think that they somewhat alluded to it earlier with him just, like the burger scene, and
Yeah.
he's starting to think about things a lot more. And then I think kind of everything clicks a little bit. He
Yeah.
hides in the zombie bodies whenever he's about to get
but
executed.
he goes over the edge. Like when he finally gets to Selena at the top, like he gores the guy's eyes out with his thumbs. And it's like,
Yeah,
I know.
that's
man.
too far. Like that's not
Yeah.
just like saving somebody. That's you've
gouging.
already gone off the deep end.
I like
Yeah,
it.
he went a little
He doesn't
animal.
say anything. Selena's looking at him. He's like, "Did he get infected? Because he's acting like one." And he's just, I'll just
That was
creepily
dumb.
walk towards you, not saying, "I'm not infected. I'm still me." And then
but,
she's about to,
you know,
like,
She can see it in the eyes, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then
Gotta get
suddenly,
close
like, he's got, people that he murdered all over him, and
Yeah,
I just went
and we're
full animal.
kissing.
Let's, like, make out like crazy. And it's
I
like,
know your
okay.
face is literally covered in blood.
Yeah.
but
I
that's a risk I'm willing
weirdly,
to take.
I liked it. I'm not gonna.
Yeah.
I did too.
So
I thought it was
Um,
like, I thought it was this moment of like, just, this is
Okay.
the final form, and I am going to.
I
you know.
did enjoy this. I love the setting of the mansion. I like seeing them all picked off one by one and him, giving them their comeuppance. But the one little part that really kind of ruined a little bit of it for me is the girl doing some sort of Need for Speed moves. I don't know. Like, she gets into the car and then she's all like,
yeah.
I'm banking on the fact that this zombie mailer guy is going to break through.
Well, she's
the back
high on
window.
I thought that
Valium.
scene was dumb too, where he like breaks through the back window and pulls him out of the back.
And
Yeah,
she's
that
like,
was
that's
pretty dumb.
exactly what I
she was
wanted
literally
to happen."
on 3 Valium, and she's like a young teenager, and I know, and we didn't really talk about that, but they gave it to her to help her with potential issues.
Yeah.
But then I think he sees her, are you stoned? And
Yeah.
she's like, that's a long story, let's go. And then the girl was like, all right, I'm going to drive and pull a getaway scene. And you're like,
Yeah,
wait,
I
what?
don't-
Yeah, because
that
Jim's
whole
wanted to
part
talk
was
because he's
the-
clearly in charge of his faculties right now.
Right.
He knows.
Right.
Everyone knows what's happening.
Yeah,
Oh,
so
yeah.
then they escape, and you get the. This is such a weird choice. It had to be Danny Boyle, where it's just like they break through the gate, and there's this freeze frame
Oh,
of
yeah.
just
that's-
like I was like,
Well,
I
there
was
was a
wondering
freeze frame
how
with
we got
the
here.
chimp in the beginning too.
yeah, it was like
Yeah,
I see
yeah.
you, Danny. That's you.
that-
And then there's another 28 days, so it's like
Yeah.
this is 56 days total. I
Yeah,
thought it was
this
28
movie
days later.
measures in 28 days for some reason. But another 28 days later, as you just referenced, Jim recovers at a remote cottage, while the infected are shown dying of starvation. Just before a Finnish fighter jet flies overhead, Jim, Selena, and Hannah unfurl a huge cloth letter O, complementing the word hello.
So-
or completing
So
the word
help
hello.
has less letters. The
and
word
even
help has
less than that,
letters than hello.
SOS.
Yes.
Yeah, why'd they say hello?
It's
Hey.
because they
even
wanted to
say
write
hi.
hell first. They wanted to have the shot of it saying hell before
Yeah, yeah.
Hey,
Dude,
Hey.
that was the same exact comment I made at the end of it. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
why didn't they just spend less time and write out SOS or just hi?
I
Like,
think
I don't.
honestly,
think-
honestly, their nice little cottage life didn't seem too
yeah,
bad though.
No,
I was
exactly.
like-
That's
They're
the
just
point.
letting
The
them know
point.
they're
I
okay.
think the point was that they're happy here,
yeah.
and
okay.
that word is like a happy word
Yeah.
to just say. And
So
like,
maybe it's just
kind
a-
of a
it's
we're
just-
okay, but we're here, and
Maybe it's just saying, leave us alone. Also, don't carpet bomb us.
yeah, a little bit. So maybe.
Or do.
Well, it showed the shot of the 2 zombies actually starving to death finally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I
so
appreciated that.
I guess established a timeline that I guess zombies can go with farther, without eating than actual normal humans.
So 56
They're
days.
driven by rage.
Man, they
Yeah.
must have some
Which
biblical
rage
help.
pathologically, if you're spending that much energy, you'd burn out a lot quicker. But
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
just saying.
All right, guys, let's close this story out, and we'll see you guys on the other side where we talk about this franchise and give our brief reviews.
All right.
So I'll see
Yeah.
y'all then.
Sponsored by Pepsi.
All right, welcome back. We're here to talk about 28 Days Later. I mean, we've been talking about it for over an hour, but we're here to review it and then talk about this franchise. Yeah. So we'll do our brief reviews with a score first, which David has all of our scores in a little bowl that he will pull at random, and we will talk about the movie. And then we'll talk about the franchise and whether this movie helped its franchise or not. So, David, why don't you pull our first name?
And first score to be spoken.
Spoken.
Irina,
All right.
7.5.
Ooh.
So this was really, really difficult to rate in
I think
my
we all
mind.
had difficulty.
It's so hard because I think it's in this transitioning phase where at the moment it comes across as really hokey, kind of cheesy, a little out of date. But I do feel like at the time it was released, I did really like it. I remember at the time really enjoying it because it was something unique. Since then, I've watched Walking Dead, and they seem to push more of the kind of fear-based in man aspect more than this did.
Yeah, and the zombies kind of took the sidecar and are just kind of...
Yeah, and I
there.
think what this did uniquely that I appreciated was that reorienting the focus on man being his own worst enemy. But that being said, I can't escape the fact that some of the writing is really not well thought out. I appreciate its direction. I appreciate the attempt at certain shots and the aesthetic, but I don't know. It's so hard to rate this way. I do think it's a hallmark in zombie film. I do think it was a turning point for that. And as far as a landmark in film, it represents the society very well, kind of the fears that it's still kind of current. And we can honestly say that because of our fear of the coronavirus at the moment. So I think I'm going to have to change it to a 7, though, because there are too many plot holes. I think 7 is good because that's
fairly positive, actually.
It's pretty positive because I want to credit the ideas at work here and what it started, because I do think it influenced a lot after the fact. And so I'm gonna stick with a 7.
All right.
Interesting. Okay.
Moving on.
Intriguing.
Next up, we have me,
7?
David, 6.5.
Wow. So, how would you put this on a rating system compared to Mummy?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Which, be more specific, which Mummy?
And the Dragon Emperor or whatever.
You guys realize
Tomb of the Dragon
Tomb
Emperor?
of the Dragon
Gosh.
Emperor.
Yeah,
Yeah.
7 seems kind of familiar.
I feel like
Yeah.
people are going to be listening to this every episode,
Yeah,
and
they're
they're
not
going to
gonna
be
forget
tired. They're going to be like, okay, we get it.
Nice try,
Wait.
David.
No,
Wait.
I think they're
Maybe
going to be
that's just
curious.
me.
I think they'll miss it if we stop.
Yeah.
Wait, what'd you give the Mummy Tomb of the Dragon Emperor?
like a 4 or something. I don't know.
I don't
4
think that's
plus
not how I
That
remember.
doesn't
it.
sound right.
Anyway, I gave this one a 6.5.
All right.
And that was actually a kind of a jump between 6.5 and 7 because honestly, this is a well thought out movie. It had a lot of good ideas. I tried to be innovative, and I appreciated all the aspects. The main part was that brought it down was that it was there were a lot of holes, like you were saying, and the writing definitely got to me. There are certain parts, especially with the daughter, where I'm like, that's not how that works. I don't know. There's just a lot of weird spots that didn't quite hit right, but a lot of the other areas hit really well. So it's a very interesting dynamic.
I thought you were gonna say something about how it's not as rewatchable, but
I don't know. I think I could rewatch it.
oh, okay.
Yeah. You didn't see that coming, did you? I'm being smart this time. This time, I know what I'm saying.
I don't know.
Let's move on to somebody else before I
You know
mess it
what
up.
you're saying, David?
I'm David, and I like the movie. All right, moving on before I say anything else. Woo, almost dropped the
Almost
bowl.
dropped your bowl.
All right, next up is AJ with a 6.5 as well.
Ooh.
I was actually kind of lower almost, and I brought it up, but I'll talk about why. But first, the big obstacle in my mind, and this may be just me being superficial, is this feels lo-fi, and I know that it's intentional. In my opinion, it was the wrong choice artistically because it does not age well being filmed with, consumer grade digital when you're kind of on the transition between analog to digital here.
Yeah.
But to put it in context, this is 2002, the same year that The Two Towers comes out, the same year that Spider-Man, The Pianist, Catch Me If You Can, Born Identity, all kind of in my personal favorite movies. And then in kind of a similar vein of style or theme, you have Signs and The Ring, where I would definitely pick Signs to watch before I watch this movie again.
I don't know if I...
None of those really, this feels like a low-budget movie. I know it's a low-budget movie, but it feels like a low-budget movie.
Yeah.
And that's just because of, kind of the visual style. And there's some glaring audio issues, just and holes. The natural pragmatist is like going to pick apart any kind of scientific stuff. I have a trouble with suspension of disbelief already, and I know zombie movies aren't the best for applying strict science and medicine and all that stuff too, but they're just stuff that doesn't really like kind of click together. Like at the beginning, oh yeah, there's an outbreak in New York and Paris, and at the end, oh no, it's just England.
Yeah.
And I don't feel like it was meant to be suspenseful or like a question mark. I think that was just kind of poor writing. Some of the chemistry, I didn't really feel chemistry between Selena and Jim personally. Some of it was just like, oh, I guess, I don't know. It's me having to do the work to meet the writer halfway. And the only reason I do that and give Garland the benefit of the doubt because I know his other works and I am a fan of his other works and I kind of see where he's coming from. But I have to do the work to lay that allegory on there and see it.
Right.
Whereas it just, I don't know, it didn't come to me naturally. And the finished product didn't really feel polished just because of, I guess maybe it's low budget and they didn't really, I don't know, like it's an independent film. It's a lower budget film. It just, I wish they had a higher budget to kind of make some more things happen better, made it look better. And I think if it looked better, a lot of this would have been excusable. So I don't know. And just like, I feel like the third act just kind of fell apart in my opinion. I didn't really care for the twist of, oh yeah, we just want to screw women. It was like, okay, I guess, yeah, I mean, I see you're trying to talk about the bad in humanity, but that just kind of distilled it and simplified it too much.
Yeah.
So I don't know. And especially, like I said, comparing it to the other films that really kind of rank highly to me in 2002, it just, I don't know. So yeah, 6.5.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
I completely see your perspective on it. It makes a lot of sense to me.
And yeah, like some of the favorite things, like we talked about Laocoon and like the stuff that's really embedded deep, like that appeals to me, but you have to do, work. You have to be an excavator and dig out that stuff. And it's like, I wish that stuff just kind of popped more and was executed better. And knowing that stuff was like rewritten just right on the spot the night before filming, and I don't know, it just didn't seem like
Lord of the Rings
stuff
did that too.
was.
A lot of movies do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know that. But
The manner in which it was done for this one.
The final product,
yeah.
especially that there's like, I don't know how many different alternative endings that were actually there. The final product didn't feel like it was, they had a clear path going forward. And I kind of felt the sense of that. It's like, oh, let's kind of ham-fist this allegory into something
Right.
for artisticness sake. And it didn't age well.
Yeah.
So with all the negative things you said, 6.5 is pretty good, actually.
Yeah. And that's me, like I said, maybe giving Garland and Boyle the benefit of the doubt too much because I did like appreciate Sunshine and some of their other stuff like Slumdog
Sunshine is
Millionaire.
very good.
And I know what they can, like I know what they were thinking and trying to do. Like I said, I kind of started lower, like at a 6. Just like, it's not really fair to judge this and say I'm doing all the work and trying to find the good in this. So I don't know. I like Irina said, and it's just, this was hard to rank because of that reason for me. What really, I'm trying to kind of put myself in the shoes of someone who saw it in the time in 2002 when it came out, when I didn't have that opportunity. I don't know. It's hard to balance.
I think I was starting to, that's reminding me of a point that I was going to make, but I guess I glossed over it. It's in a transitional phase where at this moment, it's really not aging well and it doesn't look good. But I wonder how it will age further on. Will this become kind of more like a cult film? Because obviously you look at cult films and think like,
I think it's gonna.
well, the production isn't great, and maybe 10 years after it came out, people didn't think of it that
Like
greatly.
Evil Dead
but
kind of way?
Yeah.
I think
Well,
this is gonna be like
considering-
it's gonna be like a time capsule almost. Where
Considering
you pull it
that
out.
this movie is credited for relaunching the zombie kind of trend that only recently, it lasted a decade pretty much.
Yeah.
And like, I like Shaun of the Dead. I actually am probably in the minority of people that enjoyed World War Z in its own right.
I like World War
in
Z.
a certain light. I liked the original Dawn of the Dead and the remake. Train to Busan.
Yeah.
I liked
That was a
all
good
those
one.
things. So it's like, I want them to succeed. I really wish they didn't do that artistic choice of downgrading the video quality. And some of the, just like the beginning, like the intro with the chimps and the monkey, like that didn't feel like it fit in anywhere else in the movie. And it's like, it didn't set the context properly.
Yeah.
And
See,
I just feel like the allegory was too shoehorned in
Right.
make a commentary on mankind, when I was just like, I want to watch a zombie film.
Right.
And at the time too, what also didn't age well is how gory and grisly this was, where most of us are maybe more desensitized to that kind of thing now. At the time, I think it was on the edge of, wow, this is pretty bloody and pretty graphic. I don't know.
So 6.5, you stick by it?
Yeah, I'll stay by 6.5.
All right.
All right, let's see who's next then. Oh, Reese with an 8?
Yeah, dude, come on. Like, I think this whole episode, I was so convinced that we were all it was going to be like straight flush 8 or 8.5.
Yeah.
That was my, going into this, I was,
interesting.
it was like, oh, this is going to be, everyone's just going to agree that it was a pretty good movie, pretty great. But yeah, lo and behold, we had all these kind of
Okay, all of
differing
us
opinions.
were relatively on the same page. I think you might be the only one who isn't.
Yeah. So originally, when I first saw this movie, I really didn't like how it shifted to, oh, humans are the actual danger. But the more I've thought about it, the more I've kind of come around to it. And I like that this movie kind of jerks you in different directions. I like the kind of social commentary around that. And I think Danny Boyle, for me, the filming quality or the filming style is a double-edged sword. And I said that earlier. I think, yeah, it looks terrible. But also, I do feel like I am literally on these characters' shoulders going through this apocalypse with them because of this very kinetic, visceral, filming style. Yeah, synergy.
I was helping.
So for me, I really enjoyed this movie, and I enjoyed it more than I did when I had previously seen it. I think the first half of it is a straight up horror movie where the zombies are the main threat, and you get that kind of monster movie that you want. And the second half challenges you in a different way, where there's threats on both ends, and they're enclosing on these characters, and they're forced into, Cillian Murphy's forced to kind of assume the hero role. And I actually like his character arc, and I think it's decently set up. Sure, I could have used 15 more minutes of development with him, but I think overall it's successful in its mission. And yeah, I like this movie. It's not perfect. It's definitely low budget, but they did a lot with a low budget, in my opinion. I love how they made the streets of London seem completely desolate.
I did like those.
Yeah, that explosion scene that we didn't talk about in the gas station was actually 1/32 of the budget. So
yeah, and they didn't actually alert the emergency authorities in the area, so the police and fire actually showed up.
yeah, so
It was a real thing.
yeah, there's a lot of creative uses of just to make the scope of this film seem larger on a budget that was only £8 million, which translates to just over 9 million. Spoiler for our next section in this film. But yeah, it was an over $9 million movie, and they made it feel, it feels low budget, but it covers a lot of ground.
Yeah.
It's a journey, and
That is
they meet different
very
people
low
along the
budget.
road. Yeah, they meet.
That's actually amazing. They did all this with that.
Yeah, and I also like the unconventional main character, Killian Murphy, who you don't usually see that type of character in a leading man role.
Oh, yeah.
And it's nice to see someone who is more soft-spoken and, I don't know, just different than your muscle-bound.
The weak guy, but he's got a brain.
Yeah, it's not
Bruce Willis.
Yeah, it's not Brad Pitt. It's
Yeah.
it's kind of just nice to see that
I'm
different
glad
side
he
to
was
that.
cast, especially figuring out that he wasn't the first pick. It was Ewan McGregor who
Of
was
course.
the first pick for
Although
that
I would
role.
have liked him as well. Though.
Ewan
Yeah.
McGregor.
Yeah, it was
But-
Ewan McGregor,
Different
and then
way,
they
though.
also asked what's his name?
Ryan Gosling.
Ryan Gosling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
And
Which-
but the
That
thing is, those
is
two
weird.
are too recognizable for me to actually really get into the story if they were the lead characters.
Ryan Gosling was like, he had nothing under his belt at this time. Maybe Goosebumps.
Well, that's actually
Goonies.
what kind of people liked about this at the time is, and it
Not
kept it under
Goonies,
budget too, is
Yeah.
what is
most
it?
of these actors, except for Eccleston and Brandon, what's his name?
Brendan Gleeson.
Yeah, him. they were the most high profile actors
Yeah.
at the time.
If it were Ryan Gosling, he's an American actor. It wouldn't, I feel like it wouldn't translate. Because something about this film that I think I'm also lacking personally is a good understanding of British culture and London and the way it is over there. Like I think it would have been a completely different experience if I were familiar with London, if I lived there, if it were nearby in some way, if it were more familiar to me. I think this maybe those intro scenes would have hit more.
Yeah.
So
I was able to transpose that into, my life, and I felt immersed by it enough.
When I knew enough where I know they're, like you said, they're going out of the country, they're getting out of London, they're, like they said, 27 miles out of Manchester. They aren't really actually there, but and then they're going up towards the northwest part of the island, which is more rural, type, kind of towards the sea, away from mainland Europe.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, so overall, I will stick with my 8.0, and I think y'all are crazy. No, I'm just kidding.
See, and it's like I said, I really have kind of rapport with Alex Garland. Like Ex Machina is one of my favorite films of all time. And I know what they can do with the low budget, and I just, there's that hurdle I can't get over.
No,
which is the
I
visuals.
understand.
right.
We all have different opinions, and that happens sometimes.
So we have
And
8.0.
Before we get to Noah, did y'all see the next one yet, or have y'all?
I watched
not
half
yet.
of it.
Okay, so I'm really curious how that's going to turn out because some of the same styles, but definitely more up to date visually.
Yeah.
I saw it once a while back, and so I'm excited to watch it again.
All right,
Noah.
last review.
Noah with an 8.0.
All right, give me a high five over here. I don't care.
So I'm too lazy to get into it, but pretty much what Reese said.
Noah liked it. Although it was funny because beforehand Noah thought he saw this one specifically, and he had it mixed up with the next one. But definitely not what he thought it was going to be.
Say a little bit on it.
I'll say a little bit. A little bit.
Nailed it.
Come on. It just, you don't have any
No,
other.
I enjoyed it. I think it was a really smart movie despite some plot holes. And a unique take on the zombie apocalypse.
So the aesthetic of it, the filming style didn't get in your way. The kind of like
No, not really. I actually thought the whole vibe of the cameras and everything kind of took me back and put me in a mindset that fit the movie. So
stick with the 8.0
yeah,
then.
I stick with it.
I'm a strong believer in the fact that I think this movie could improve in its score the longer I keep away from it. You know, I think 7 for me is just because I have to acknowledge the plot holes. I have to acknowledge some of the weaker actors and the weak writing in spots. I do love the story. Certain things could have been omitted or other things stretched more. And I don't know. I think it could become stronger in my memory as maybe, who knows, 10 years down the road.
Yeah.
So
The older
Give it
we
another
get,
10 years. Possible.
The next virus outbreak might bring us closer.
Yeah.
So let's play
Hopefully
the
not.
box office game.
All right. I already said how much this movie cost, so y'all have an idea. Yeah, so cost, I'll just say it again, in case people weren't listening. This movie cost 5 to 8 million pounds. I've seen different reports, but the 8 million pounds basically translates to 9.3 million US dollars, which is very low. That's like a Blumhouse type production budget.
So when it comes to this, normally you say that you wanted to triple its budget to be successful. I gotta say, it's probably made more than 27 million. That's just my guesstimate.
I will
bet.
say a different factor comes into play with low budget movies. They tend to spend more on advertising to kind of overcompensate a little bit, or they overcompensate a little bit with that and they're allowed to spend more that way if they have a good movie on their hands.
What month of the year did this come out?
I don't have
November.
that on hand.
November?
Well,
November
and just to say, Boyle and Garland are kind of primarily low budget films. Like Slumdog Millionaire was low budget. Ex Machina, Sunshine, like that's kind of what they do, is the low budget, almost indie kind of.
Sunshine is actually very impressive. It was not nearly as low budget as this, but what they accomplished on a mid-level budget is extraordinary.
Yeah.
Oh, I would say the same thing about Ex Machina, but it's obviously newer. But
Yeah.
All right, Noah, do you want to
All
go
right,
first?
so
or do
yeah,
you
let's
want-
do some predictions here. Noah, AJ, and David, y'all are more confident in your predictions. Unless Irina, you've been doing a lot of research on that.
I do have a guess, actually.
Okay,
Ooh.
cool.
But you guys
Sorry,
go
I didn't know.
first.
No, okay,
No, you're
David,
good.
go ahead.
Worldwide total, I'm going to go with 125 million.
Okay.
I freaking hate you, David.
Is that what you're going to say?
I was gonna say 130.
Haha, I got the lower end.
Do you want to take 130 then?
Yeah,
Noah?
I'll take 130.
130. AJ?
Gosh, that's so annoying. I was gonna go
No,
first, and
I think this was
but-
sub 100.
Sub
I
100?
would say 90.
90. All right, Irina.
82 million.
82. All right, Irina, you are the winner.
Because I
Hey,
saw it. Sorry, guys.
Oh my god.
cheater.
You didn't say money.
Okay.
I didn't say
Yeah,
money
you're
this
saying-
time.
Okay, AJ, you're technically our winner then, with 86 million worldwide.
Dang.
Off of a 9.3 million budget.
That's pretty decent.
Yeah, it made 8 times its budget. This movie was a surprise success, especially because they weren't expecting it to break out in the U.S. They were expecting it to do typical like indie level, make a few million and then exit theaters. But this made 45 million in the U.S., which was
The best
they were
market
not,
for it, wasn't it?
yeah, they were not expecting it. The opening was actually only 10 million, and it actually had a huge multiplier in the long run, doing over 4 times its opening weekend, which also doesn't happen, especially for horror movies. So it kind of had a breakout.
Very unique.
Yeah, so needless to say, this movie was not the reason for this franchise not being successful. I do think there was less of an emphasis put on making sequels to this. I don't think this was viewed as something that was franchise material, but I think it was made as a standalone movie, and then it did so well, and they were like, hey, maybe we can continue this. Maybe we do 28 weeks later, and then 28 months later. And
Just stop.
28 years later.
yeah, and one of those has happened. So yeah, this honestly, it created a franchise where there was none.
Yeah.
A genre franchise.
Yeah, I don't think there was any intention to do a sequel to this, and its success spawned a sequel. So definitely not a franchise killer here.
So how did critics and audiences see this movie?
Yeah, so let's get to that as we close out. Critically, Rotten Tomatoes, this movie had a 87% with an audience score of 85%.
Wow.
On IMDb, audiences gave it a 7.6 out of 10. And the Metacritic score was 7.3 with an audience score on Metacritic of 7.7. So overall, positive to very positive reviews, especially for a zombie movie, which they don't tend to score this high.
Yeah.
Yeah, the only others at that time that had decent reviews were 2 years later, Dawn of the Dead. Zack Snyder's Dawn of the Dead actually did pretty well. And
Shaun of the Dead?
Yeah, definitely Shaun of the Dead. That was up in the 90s, but that was not even horror. But
What? That scared me.
did it?
I mean,
Simon Pegg
they
and
did
Nick
do
Frost scare me a lot.
some good horror elements.
Yeah. So I guess I'll hand it over to you guys. Do you think there's anything about this movie that affected the franchise in any way, or
The fact that they didn't plan for a franchise.
yeah?
I mean, they were so successful, they had nothing they could do. It was,
I mean, it kind of like it's an anthology, I guess, in a weird way. If they end
Yeah.
up doing a third, it's
I don't know if that's really the niche that Garland and Boyle really work in planning for,
Yeah.
multiple titles and stuff. They kind of put their art out there, and it is what it is.
Yeah.
So
This does, watching it again, kind of does have that feeling of almost a summer project, even though I know it was released in November. It was just,
I know. Yeah,
Yeah.
Garland was kind of a writing project for him, like
Right.
writing the story.
so you kind of pick up on that. It's almost like a short story that you read in school or something that was turned into a film. That's kind of the equivalent that I
Yeah.
would put this to, was a short story, but it was made into a full-length movie.
yeah. All right. So you wanted to AJ? You said you wanted to average our scores or do something like that.
With an overall average of 7.2, and if that math is wrong, blame Excel. We are looking at ranking 7 in our new audio lineup here out of 12 episodes. So kind of smack dab in the middle,
Okay.
below the middle. And then,
Saved by Noah and I.
Yeah, that
and
probably
let me
would have
see
been
if I
like
can-
last place.
No, not quite, because
thought
League of
it-
Extraordinary Gentlemen and Spider's Web.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right.
And then let me see if I can put that in our total episode with archives included. Let's let this do its magic. And as in the words of The Office, can you crunch the numbers again? 28 days later is number 11 out of 27.
All
So
right,
still kind
all
of somewhere in
right.
the
Upper
middle.
half, upper half.
All right.
Sounds good.
45th percentile.
That seems right. That seems
Okay, I'll take it.
Appropriate.
I'll take it. Y'all are
But
a
yeah,
little less
pretty good
crazy.
for an episode sponsored by Pepsi.
yeah.
All right, that closes out our 28 days later. Y'all stay clean out there, okay?
Yeah, wash your hands.
Wash
Yeah,
your
and
hands.
also
Yourself.
you can find our podcast everywhere you listen to podcasts, specifically Spotify, Apple, Google, Stitcher, Podbean. Any others that I'm missing?
Sit
The
and-
Pirate Bay.
Sit and
The
listen to
Pirate
us
Bay.
on your throne of toilet paper.
And if this movie didn't teach you,
Yep.
social distancing.
Yeah. And next
Very
week
important.
we'll be talking about obviously 28 weeks later. Stay tuned. Bye, guys.
Bye.